Could you arrange that? What happened when Ray was telling the story? You know, it's just such a God thing. What an awesome time of worship. And I just want to thank Ray again. Ray, thank you for sharing. Well, welcome and good evening, all of you. Why is it still so loud? Is it too loud? It's too loud? Yeah. Welcome. If you're here for the first time, you are the most important people here in the room. We're so glad that you're here. We hope you feel welcome. I hope you feel loved and embraced. Because for me, when I walked into Celebrate Recovery the first time, that's exactly how I felt. I felt like I was found a place I could say I'm home. I was with other people who just, I knew, shared the struggles and the difficulties in life that I had gone through. You know, we talk about, you know, we all have a story, don't we? I mean, it's like you walk past people on the sidewalk every day and, you know, you see the faces, but you don't see the life that's underneath the face. And sometimes you see faces that you can tell there's pain. And there's struggle, and there's difficulty, and there's depression. There's shame, and guilt, and remorse. And I can talk about it because I, too, came into this program with so much of that stuff, so much of that baggage, so much of that luggage in my life. If you are just joining us, we've been really camped out the last 2 months, really, on this principle 4 of Celebrate Recovery, which says that we openly examine our lives, that we, myself, and to someone, we admit it to someone else, and to God, and to someone else, what was going on in our lives. And with the 5th step, we made a fearless, and I'm really screwing this up, 4th step where we made a searching and fearless moral inventory, and then the 5th step where we admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. And we look at this verse that Rick Warren has accompanied with this principle and with this step, and it says, therefore, confess your sins to one another and pray for each other that you may be healed. Comes out of the book of James. And it talks about this obvious thing that in our sin, in our privateness, in our isolation, that there's an unhealthiness to it, that there was healing that needed to be made. If you remember, Chris Johnson kind of kicked this off, and we talked about this first part of it where we needed to own our part of it. That we looked at a circle, and in that circle there was this part of our lives, but we would prefer to blame somebody else. And in so much of my life growing up, I had the finger pointed at a lot of people out there that were the reason I was the way I was. And it was pretty easy. It was more easy to go around telling the story about what people had done to me than to really look at my part in it and what part I played in it. And we talked about owning it. And that blame allows us to, what it really allows us to do is really to smuggle our issues from the past into the future. That if we just continue to go through life blaming people for everything that's gone wrong in our lives, that we never really face it. And that we find that the same things keep happening over and over into our lives. That it's sort of like, you know, it's just sort of like every day becomes Groundhog Day. That relationship was just like the last relationship. Because really we haven't grown, we haven't owned our part of it. And then last week I talked about releasing it. And releasing it was about this circle that is the other areas of our lives where people truly have influenced and hurt us. And that we needed to look at each situation in our lives, and that we have to go through these situations in our lives. I asked this question, I said, how far into your future do you intend to carry the angst that's created by your past? How long do you plan to allow people who mistreated you to influence you? You know, a week, a month, a year? Most people in our society go through the difficulties of life, And they carry that baggage into every relationship. They carry it into their future. In this program, we learn something that I feel that it's really special that we get the opportunity to do this, because so many people, I think, miss this. And it's really about releasing the things in our lives that bog us down. I want to kind of move fast because I do want us to get into our groups tonight. But when we look at this one verse that we talked about, that you might be healed, this verse in James, I want to show a quick little video here and then come back real quick and actually wrap up this third part, which is talking about confessing it. Because really, that's the essence of how we heal and how we move through to a life that has promises of never regretting the past or wishing you could shut the door on it. A life of freedom. A new life where we can begin new memories without dragging that past along with us. So Corey, if you got that video.
Okay, so you're going along, bouncing through life with no concerns, and then you notice one day that you don't feel too well. But you think, I'm sure it'll pass, so you ignore it. But it doesn't pass, it gets worse, and you get worse, and everyone starts noticing that you're worse, but no one says anything, because who likes to hear, hey, you don't look well? And so you start thinking, well, whatever I've got, it's not going to kill me, at least anytime soon. And so you adapt and you adjust and you accommodate this illness, this sickness. And you never really start feeling any better, you just get used to feeling bad. And the whole time, all your friends and family and coworkers, well, they don't say anything because they, like you, hope it will all just go away. But then one day a friend says to you, like a real friend does, you don't look well. And you say, trust me, I'm fine. And you walk away incensed, but still sick. And you think, well, if I look so bad, why hasn't anyone else said anything? I mean, who does this guy think he is? But in your heart of hearts, you know who he is. He's the one guy with the guts to tell you the truth. And you see him again the next day, and he says the same thing again, and you become more offended and more sick until one day he says, you know, you don't have to be sick. And you say, what makes you such an expert anyway, huh? You some sort of doctor? He says, no, I'm not a doctor. But I have had what you have, and I got well because I had the right medicine. Do you want any? And then you have one of those moments that comes along every once in a decade where everything just becomes crystal clear, and it's like the blinders come off and you're able to truly see for the first time in your life. And you look in the mirror and you think, I look horrible. I'm barely hanging on here. And so you take your friend's medicine, and sure enough, you get better. And not just better, but better than you were before you got sick, better than you've been your whole life. First thing you do is run out and tell everybody, hey, remember how sick I used to be? Well, I took this medicine and I got better. And you're happy and they're happy for you and things are great, and after a while you felt so good for so long that you've forgotten what it's like to be sick because you're no longer the sick guy, you're just the guy. And so there you go, bouncing through life with no concerns, until you notice something different one day about one of your friends. She didn't look quite right, something odd about her and yet strangely familiar. And then it hits you, she's sick just like you were. The first thing you think is, well, I'll offer her some of the medicine that I took. But what will she think? I mean, who am I to tell her that she's sick, that she doesn't look well? Because after all, who likes to hear you don't look well? I mean, she's a good friend, and if you tell her that she's sick, she might get her feelings hurt, and it'll be awkward, and well, the whole thing could just be avoided by letting someone else tell her. Better yet, maybe she'll just figure it out on her own one day. Yeah. That's probably the best plan. I mean, after all, it's not like she'll die, right?
The last line in that grabs me because it's not like she's going to die or anything, right? You know, recently I've just seen so many people with whatever they're struggling with return to that one thing that wants to destroy them. Last week we talked about this thing in our lives that has a foothold, it can have a foothold. And for me, this is what he was talking about is, nobody likes to be called sick. I remember when I first came to this program and they said I had a disease, you know, and I sort of liked it because it was like kind of let me off the hook in a way. But then when I really looked at it, it was like, okay, this is something that I got to deal with, and I'm going to have to face this honestly. And when I got a sponsor, as he started to talk to me about this fourth and fifth step, he started to talk about, secrets that I had. He goes, Alan, you have secrets. And he says, everybody has secrets. And he says, those are the things that need to come to the surface, because that is the one thing that will drive you into isolation, and it will also be the thing over which you will pick up and drink and drug again. Because we use alcohol, drugs, we can use food, we can use sex, we can use so many different things to numb that pain that's inside, that thing that has a foothold in our lives. And for me, it was way more than just alcohol and drugs. Share a little story. It's a story from my life, a very early story of my life that I don't even remember. It's told by my mom. But when I was 2, we moved to a little town west of Chicago called Bensonville, and there were a bunch of row houses, and it was all families, kids playing out in the road, riding their bicycles, and next door was, there was 3 girls that lived next door. When I was 4, Debbie was a year older than me, and then there was Lori and Patty, who were younger sisters, but Debbie and I grew up just kind of playing together all the time. And actually, we fought more than we played. You see, Debbie was a terror on wheels. I mean, she was just a demon-possessed child. She was responsible for everything that went wrong in our neighborhood. And one time, my mom and her mom were best of friends. They spent time every day having coffee. And so we would just run from house to house. There was just an open door between the houses. And they were looking for us. And they found Debbie and I, like I said, I was about 4, and I think Debbie was 5. And they found us in the closet, and we were naked. And we were playing with each other. And, it's amazing, I don't remember this, but what my mom tells me was that this demon child was responsible for all of that. I learned real quickly that, yeah, Mom, you're right, it's Debbie. And as you know, the deviant mind here, that was the beginning. And things got better from there, right? The rest of my life was stories like that. It's amazing that the first thing that 2 young kids knew was that nakedness means we're doing something wrong. Somehow we had this conscience to know that we need to hide in the closet because Mom's probably not going to like this going on. And it was amazing as I unpacked that whole story about, wow, this is really what's happened in my whole life. Later on it was smoking, smoking cigarettes and hiding, and breath mints and, not letting the parents know. And then it moved into drinking and hiding. And as I began to think about this, everything that I did, that in my heart I knew was the wrong thing to do. There's that voice inside that we have that tells us this is not a good idea, but we do it, like Ray was talking about. We hide it. And that's how we're programmed. And it is counterintuitive. It is counter our nature to want to share those things about our lives. It's so much easier to blame it on somebody else. It wasn't my fault. Confession is one of the things that in the 12 and 12 it talks about this 5th step that I needed to admit it to God, but most of us say, yeah, but God already knows. But as Ray was talking about, hearing the words, that God, I've really blown it, and being able to verbalize that out loud to God was the first part. I had to admit it to myself. I had to admit it to God. But the hardest thing for me to do was to share that with my sponsor. There were things that I was going to take to my grave, folks. There just was things I was going to take to my grave. And as a matter of fact, I short-stepped this step. Just a quick question. How many of you, group participation, how many of you have done the 4th and the 5th step in here? Just raise your hands. Okay, how many have not? Come on, there's more. Yeah, I know that. I know. My goal for those of you who have your hands raised, okay, is that by the end of this month, you will make a decision that you want to lay down the luggage, okay? You want to break the chains, and that you will pursue this confession thing. Because when we admit to our sponsor everything, and I'm talking about everything, and let me tell you, you know what, they don't care. Truth is, you didn't do these things to them. They've heard it all before. If you think you've done something that they got a name for everything, okay? Trust me, you didn't come up with some twisted thing that you think you might, because I did. But you know what? It was invented way before you were born, and it's been being done for a long, long time. And the thing that you probably said, I will not share this with anybody, is the thing that I did. I kept a few things back, and ultimately I picked up and I relapsed. Because I still had that tormentor in my brain. That one thing that was constantly reminding me, okay, of the things that I did. I went on also to have an affair on one of my wives. And that ate me up. But also, what it did, until I confessed it to her, it destroyed our relationship ultimately. And other things around it. Today, I'm fortunate to say that her and I are good friends, and that I've been forgiven for that. But what my hope is for you tonight as we go into our open share groups is that you would keep an open mind about this step. That you would realize that the freedom that comes, okay, the wellness that comes, the ability to go to bed and put your head on the pillow and go to sleep. There's nothing like it. Jesus knew this, and he knew that this was something that was part of healing for people. And so this word, confess your sins to one another that you might be healed, was his medicine for the broken soul. And I would just pray as we leave here tonight, as we go into our groups, that none of you would skip this step. Talk to somebody. If you need a sponsor, search around here, look for one of the leaders. We'll help you find a sponsor. If there's somebody you would like to share your story with, I'm going to call on some of the people around here and say, yeah, I'll make myself available to you. This needs to be somebody you trust. AA talks about it, NA talks about being a sponsor. Doesn't have to be a sponsor. It could be somebody who is walking a good, strong program, who's gone through this before, and somebody who cares about you, and somebody who can give you guidance. Does that sound good? Let me pray for you guys. Heavenly Father, you are so good. All of the music tonight, all of the videos just echo how important forgiveness is, and to feel it when it's given to us, and then to freely give forgiveness to those who've hurt us. It just releases us to the life that you want us to have, a life that's free, that talks about the 9-step promises where we'll know a new freedom and a new happiness, that we won't regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on it. That's the type of life we want. And so help us be brave, help us be courageous, and help us in the next 2 weeks to reach out to somebody, if we haven't done so already, and say, hey, can we meet together? Can we talk about it? Thank you for Celebrate Recovery. Thank you for those who are here tonight. And we just ask your blessing on this week as we go forward, and then into our small groups tonight. In Jesus' name. Amen. Take 5 minutes to get to our groups. Thanks, guys.